Imagine being at such a low point in your life that one day you just break down, alone, in your garage, sobbing. A sense there's so much more to life, if only you dared to explore it. Now imagine not just sobbing alone, but doing so in a chest freezer filled with cold water. It's a weird image, but that's exactly the situation that Dan Bosomworth found himself in. Now imagine you take that emotion and that home appliance and you turn them into a movement, a brand that everyone from Ronaldo to the royal family wants in on. It doesn't mean the tough times have suddenly disappeared, because Dan is about to reveal what creating Brass Monkey has really cost him. Please don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening or watching. I love making the run where it happened, and I really want to bring even more incredible guests onto the show. So if you haven't yet, hit the follow button. If you already have, thank you so much. Let's do it then. In partnership with IFS, this is The Room Where It Happened with Brass Monkey founder, Dan Bosomworth. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Why have you chosen this specific room to take us to today?
It's a trigger event. It created the desire and the motivation to change, which then I didn't know at the time, but led to a formation of not only a company, but a movement, I guess. Lockdown was difficult for people in different ways, wasn't it? And I know people who think lockdown was absolutely superb. And for me, it created too much space and space to get lost in perhaps and think a bit too much and wonder a bit too much and dwell a bit too much. And I remember feeling incredibly stressed. And I'd lived with stress a lot. You know, I've worked in, marketing agencies with 3 kids close together. They're aged 8, 9 and 10. So they were significantly younger back then. And they create their own pressure and so on. But I'd never really thought about building my own cold water pod bath. I mean, there weren't even things then. But it became an imperative in mid to late 2020 because the wheels were for I was unraveling really, and I didn't know that.
Why?
I'd lost purpose, and I'm not sure I'd had the purpose I wanted in the first place, but I felt aimless and I felt a bit stupid. You know, I'd built this business, I'd sold it, and we'd got a bit out of it, and you know, mortgage free and those kinds of great things. But I've not achieved anything. What am I teaching my kids? What am I? And I felt very down on myself. And I don't know why, but it can become a downward spiral, can't it? And it's not like it was a depression in the sense of serious, clinical, like I need to speak to someone. I just felt lethargic, tired, aimless. And for whatever reason, one day I just decided, I need to build an ice bath. I need to make an ice bath. And I said to my wife, Gemma, do you know what? You know the chest freezer? I want to fill it with water, make an ice bath. And she obviously knew things were going on for me. And she just looked at me with a, right. She didn't say anything, which was probably a good thing. So she let me kind of convert this ice bath, and I filled it up, and I was so excited.
Were you using like the electricity for the freezer to cool the thing down?
Yeah, so it makes a big rim of ice all the way around. And I'd looked on YouTube, there's some guys doing it in America, and they were using timers on plug sockets to create the on-off effect, so it freezes, and then it, you know, because you need it to go off to release the ice. And I returned the next morning to this ice bath, and it's there, and it's icy, and I'm smashing it up thinking, this is bloody brilliant. I cannot wait. And I can remember it now, and it was was a bit like in here actually. It was dark. He said the door was open. No one was there. I think Gemma had taken the kids out for a walk or something, and I got in early, kind of fairly early in the morning. And as I sat in, I kind of welled up and just cried. It was like this feeling of emotion of I'm not sure what was going on really, except that some kind of validation of, I know this stuff works. I didn't bawl or anything, but I just really welled up and cried a bit in my ice bath in this dark and gloomy garage, thinking this thing is brilliant. I'm so glad that it's in my life. And within weeks, the idea was born.
So the idea for your business, was it born in the ice bath in that moment, or was something switched on in your brain that kind of...
It was absolutely born in that moment. Not in the sense of I'm going to do this and it'll be called Brass Monkey. But in the, why is this not a product? In that moment, the insight emerged, the founding insight emerged. This works. It was the insight. The problem was, well, there isn't a product. So why isn't there a product? So the opportunity is, well, should someone make one then? Why has no one made one? And then I, Googling around and found a company in the US, Morosco Forge. They were the first ice bath that I came across kind of in the world, really. About a year ahead of where I was at that time. And I engaged with Morosco, guys, what are you doing? Could I import your product? I'm a brand guy, and I was excited about becoming a distributor. And they were quite guarded and, fair enough, really.
Yeah.
This crazy idiot, kind of from Leeds, kind of getting in touch. And then I thought, actually, I should just do this myself. But I kept close with them. And to this day, we keep in touch. Tom and Jason out there. And we got hold of Morosco. And Dale and I, my brother. And he dismantled it. That wasn't what we agreed, but he dismantled it. I turned my back and he's got it in his garage and it's in bits. I know how this works. Right. And that was really the moment where insight met. I think we should make one. I think we should do it. I think it should be a thing. And I'd been practicing in that chest freezer, that cold water immersion experience for a couple of months at the time. And it just rapidly then came together. But the founding insight was in that moment. And I knew straight away, Brass Monkey. I don't know where the name came from, but it was an instant, Brass Monkey. Yeah, that'll be it.
Did you think that in the ice bath that day?
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I went in and told my wife, Gemma, and I said, I'm going to start this thing. I'm going to call it Brass Monkey. And I was expecting her to be jubilant and excited. And she was, yeah, that'd be cool. I wanted a bit more of a reaction, if I'm honest, because this is amazing.
You know what I think is important, though, is that often we have these moments where we think of something cool. But I think we think that to come up with a new business is so much more than just an idea, so much more than a fleeting thought, so much more than a flash of inspiration.
Yeah.
It has to be loads of work and weeks of meetings and development. But actually, the truth is that it's that flash of inspiration where it all begins. Without that, nothing ever happens.
Yeah. And I was very lucky, actually, because I've been in the agency world for so long, working with so many brands, a lot of them premium brands, thinking they don't get it. They're so intent on selling things at people.
Yeah.
They don't understand really how to inspire people and build community it makes sense. The shareholders are too hungry for cash and growth. And so they shortchange all the time. So for me, it was an opportunity to walk my own talk. As my dad would say, put up or shut up. If you're going to do it, do it.
So what was the secret then to not just creating another brand, but creating a brand that people would love, that would create a sense of community, that would give you a sense of fulfillment, that was so much deeper than just what's my turnover, what's my profit?
Brand's different to product. So David Ogilvy had this quotation where he said, every brand has products, but every product is a brand. Mm. And what that really meant to me was, you've got to create a movement different to the product itself. You've got to create change around the brand. I don't mind that not every person in our following, in our tribe, will ever buy a Brass Monkey. It doesn't matter. What matters is they engage with the category, that they understand the cold as a therapeutic tool, that they make change for themselves. Because my founding insight was that when I'm challenged, I'm changed. When I sit in the cold and it challenges me, I'm changed. It's what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Mm. If I pick up a dumbbell and use it in a set ways, I'll get stronger. If I do press-ups every morning, I'll get stronger. Well, the cold's no different. It's a hormetic stressor. It's a tool that allows you to become stronger. And that's what matters to me with the brand, is that we're a champion of that idea. And that's way more important than selling products, because over time it will come together. It will come to pass if we persist.
And I think people can understand how you sell a product, right?
Mm.
You build it, you make it bloody good, you put a price on it,
yep.
You put it in a shop or you put it on the internet, right?
Yep.
Building a brand is sometimes such a far more difficult concept for people to grasp, right?
Yeah.
So what would you want to share with us about the secret of creating a brand, not just creating a product?
Have a vision around why. So I was fortunate to have come from a background in branding. So I understood it, and I'd seen it done well and I'd seen it done badly. We can do things to help people, and we can popularize a movement away from selling products. Now, making the right product mattered as well. I don't want to pretend it doesn't. And we chose a very difficult route, and we didn't know we were doing it at the time, but we chose to start to build our own product. So the brand idea emerged quickly. I got the logo drawn up for 200 quid by a guy in Israel that I'd found on Dribble. That was easy. It was stuff. It was like I could go through those motions quite quickly. I drew up the mission. I knew what we were about.
What did you draw up when you started draw up the mission? What did it say?
Challenge creates change, and that runs through Brass Monkey. And that's why we've been able to engineer the product as it is, because every time we hit problems, it's okay. Challenge creates change. Just embrace the discomfort, whether it's an ice bath or whether you're building a business. There's no change without the discomfort. You've got to get uncomfortable. You've got to take so much failure on the chin and see it as progress, see it as feedback. Otherwise, there's no opportunity to grow to where you want to be.
Do you believe every business should have a mission?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's just too hard otherwise.
How do you mean?
If you don't have a North Star, if you don't have an emotional reason to show up and make stuff happen for yourself and for other people, it's too difficult. It's too difficult. But we would have given up. The amount of failure, honestly, in the first year was phenomenal and expensive. And we self-funded the whole thing for the best part of 2 years. The three of us, my brother and I, and then a third guy, Chris, who joined. And it was hard. Can we do it? I'm not sure we can do it. And we're taking learnings from a chest freezer and Morosco and thinking, but it doesn't work. The price point becomes too high because the way we're building it. And it's really unelegant. So then we arrived at software. It's got to be software-led because that'll create the convenience factor of sheets of ice. Great. And we built that out. And the obstacle is the way, as the Stoic quote goes. By leaning into the obstacle, this is hard. How are we going to do it? Created the answer, which was, we'll do it in a totally different way and make that a feature. So now it's a software-led, self-generating ice bath that's connected to the internet that you can control on an app. Well, it would never have been that if mechanically it had worked easily. And that for me was important because, we've just designed competitive advantage and got our first piece of IP. We can patent that. So we did. We patented effectively a defrost function. And when we set out, and I remember I got the logo back from the Israeli guy. And I just thought, that's amazing. I'd scribbled this awful brief. I want it to feel like this monkey's calm under pressure, but it's going to look like a snowflake. That's what that is. So the monkey's been squashed, but it's really calm under stress. But it must look like a snowflake, because we need it to be a bit cold looking. And he created this stunning line work, and mine was really rubbish what I had sent him. And I saw it and I thought, that's a wellness brand. And it just felt like this is important. And so all these pieces were coming together: premium brand, clear mission, my brother leading the engineering side, everything just stainless steel and beautiful, and software control and cloud-based monitoring, and all these things were building up to this point of, we're at this end of the market, not that end. And that's not to say we can't go at the lower end. That's a decision that we've chosen to not take.
Was there a moment where you just went, just bin this off?
No. Absolutely not. No. And we were told all the time we were stupid. I was told I was stupid. People, they don't say it directly, but they make remarks. They make remarks like, but you've been so successful in marketing and why? Do you think anyone's going to buy that and do that? And again, it's just too hard. You've got to have a clear idea of your why, your reason to exist, your mission. And I was reading that Ryan Holiday stuff at the time, and obstacle is the way, and that really, I believe it, and there's got to be a way around this. And it was Chris, who was the third guy that joined. Chris, he was a co-founder in agency, the agency we started, First 10. He joined, and he was like, it's just software. We're messing around with software. Why don't we just make software?
So the software to control turning on and off.
Yep. So we made a rudimentary PCB board. We got a mechanical engineer in. Could you create something with a chip on that tells that to come on and off, that runs a time? And he was like, yep, can do that. And we'd been to this guy who was one of the most vehement in dismissing us. Because it's very hard to start something when the category doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And so we went to a number of refrigeration engineers who, and we wanted their advice. We're not pretending we know it. We know nothing about refrigeration. Can you help us understand? They didn't want to know. One guy laughed us out of the room. But as he laughed us out of the room, he made a comment because we talked about the stuck ice. Oh, that's just defrost. And I thought, he's with the software work and the defrost. What's defrost? So we were Googling in the car park, how does that, and it's effectively putting the system in reverse. It's a solenoid. So, well, if it's just a solenoid, could we put our system in reverse? And now the PCB, the little computer bit, will now tell the system to effectively send a small amount of heat back and therefore release the ice in very thin predictable sheets. But if we'd not faced that much rejection, that much dismissing, we would never have done it.
It's mad though, isn't it? That one sort of dismissive offhand
and he was insulting, really.
Who was being a bit derogatory, not very interested. Like, thank you very much for not caring and for basically trying to be a bit cleverer than us by telling us what the problem was, because you solved the problem for us. Yeah. And that's, I think, the magic in these entrepreneurial journeys. It's easy now to sit here and say it was significant. It's having the ability to know at the time that it's significant.
Yeah, and keep going.
Yeah.
Keep going. And I've always struggled with perfection. And really, it's not about perfection, it's about progress. Keep going. And this idea of then lay the next brick, lay the next brick, lay the next brick. I think there's a parallel idea of collecting insight as you go, because insight maybe is, are we building this in the right direction though? Because we're building and progressing, but is this the right direction? And other problems we've had along the way have been more strategic in that nature.
And that,
should we keep going?
I want people to fully understand that, because it's easy to see here because survivorship bias tells you keep going because it worked, right? Keeping going is only effective if you keep going, but constantly change your mind, constantly iterate, constantly learn, constantly speak to people, constantly take feedback, constantly question yourself. So don't just keep going on the same path.
Yeah.
Keep going, but allow the path to change around you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, listen for feedback. It's listening for those signals, isn't it? And it's not easy, that, I don't think, because whilst people are dismissing you and reminding you that you're probably not good enough, and people do love to do that, and they do it in such lovely ways, and they think they're being useful, and they're giving you wisdom. But really, they're just not brave enough themselves. So they remind you why you're probably not either. You'll know now in the ice bath market, there's an awful lot of companies that import mass Chinese-made stuff. Some of it inflates, some of it's more lightweight plastic, more hot tub-like, I guess you would call it. And that's cool. To each their own. And we thought, well, why don't we give that a go? And we thought, well, we'll just get one of these. Let's get one of these Chinese chillers, and everyone's using these Chinese chillers around us now. And that became a 6-figure mistake because we shortcutted. It was the first time we used someone else's technology and trusted that it would all just magically work.
How much did this mistake cost you?
About 150k.
What was the mistake?
Buying and committing to product that was inferior to what we'd built the brand on.
And it cost you 150k how?
We've had to replace every single one in market.
Because they failed?
Yeah.
And that's interesting because there's an air of embarrassment. There's an air of letting people down.
Yeah.
There's the £150,000 cost of doing that. But there's also what do people now think of Brass Monkey?
Yeah.
Because we'd sold them a dream.
Yeah.
And then we'd given them something else.
Yeah.
What did you learn in that period?
Be true to the mission. And the mission, from that Brand Point Challenge creates change. So the product itself was great, and the barrel is stunning. And the detail on the barrel, the way it's resined, the way it's finished, was all Brass Monkey. But we failed to apply it to the chilling component. We assumed too much. We took the fast and easy route, which turned out to be the wrong and expensive route. And it forced us to, well, actually, let's now make our own chilling product. And that also created opportunity, which we didn't know at the time. So actually, that being 150k mistake was actually a really big gift.
We'll carry on the conversation in just a moment. But first, if I asked you to picture AI in action, I reckon you'd think of a large language model or something that you think optimizes your own personal productivity. But have you stopped to think about the impact that AI actually has on the big industries? Industries like aviation, manufacturing, construction, and energy. The kind of businesses that we interact with every single day that rely on AI without us even being aware of it. Let's take energy, for example. 8 out of 10 of the US's top energy companies use IFS.ai to power your home. Industrial AI is IFS.ai. I've been working with IFS for years. I know them really well. I've seen the impact up close and personal, and I'm so proud that they're partnering with Room Where It Happened on this show. And if you're like me and your business deals with assets and you want to deliver the very best class service to your people and your customers, please check them out at ifs.ai. Proud partners of Room Where It Happened. It's great, though, that you can take the lessons from the failure and also allow the failure to send you down routes that you didn't know previously. But it's also a great reminder for anyone listening to this that, on something like our show, you can create the greatest show. But if you don't spend money on getting some good social clips, or you don't spend the money on the due diligence of making sure a guest is who they tell you they are when they come on, those small things undermine the entire brand and the whole thing. And we've seen it with other businesses. The whole thing can collapse.
Yeah.
So we've been in the room where you have a cry and you decide to do this. We've been in your brother's garage, the other room where you've built this thing and you've created it, and then it starts to sell and you suddenly actually have a brand.
Yeah.
I'd love to go to the room where you had your greatest moment, where you thought, I can't actually quite believe this is happening to us. What room would that be?
It was when commercial interest started to peak. So we were doing the stuff with influencers.
Yeah.
And we had we have a lot of famous customers that we're not allowed to talk about, and NDAs. So some of them are royalty in this country and overseas. Some of them are pop star royalty. There's all kinds of people. And
can we talk a bit about that?
Yeah.
How do you build a brand when you're kind of having to build a brand by stealth? So you would love to tell people which members of the royal family are using your ice bath, right? It's guaranteed sales.
It would be amazing.
You would love to share photos of the pop stars. I mean, we read reports, Ed Sheeran's got a load of your ice baths. Whether that's true or not, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the kind of thing that if you could
comment on that.
But if you could put it on your website, that would be quite useful, right?
Yeah.
How do you build a brand when you can't tell people the huge names that are using your product?
Because you build it on purpose. You build it with a mission in mind and a clarity of what we're trying to do. And it's built really through building community.
Right.
And those are little signals, because there is a community around those famous people that they talk to each other. We've recently shipped a unit to Jimmy Carr, and he's going to make us a little video and whatever. And then another comedian's got in touch about, I think I'd like one. I won't name his name because I don't know where that's going to go. But, the pockets, aren't they? So, and then when you're in with pop star royalty, well, there's a way. I trust that that's going to get us somewhere. And then some people are just great. Gary Barlow, he was very much, he just phoned. The phone rings and Gary Barlow's on the end of it. And he's like, well, I'd love to buy one. And he was really interested. Well, where are you? Where are you? What's this about? And I'd love one. And are you wanting a deal? No. I'll buy it. It's not a problem. And I'll give you a shout out. Don't worry about it.
What's the secret to working with high profile people and getting it right, do you think?
Respect. I think respect. I think they're private, they're regular people, but they're private. They've a lot to lose. They don't want to be talked about. Respecting their space. We never leverage them.
I guess the most famous publicly known person that uses your ice baths is Cristiano Ronaldo, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you just tell me where you were the moment that you found out he was using one of yours?
Well, I knew before he did, because we'd kitted out Al Nasser's spa.
Yeah.
So it was. I didn't know we'd get the picture. But I knew that there are these elite level players go to Saudi, and so we'd supplied 4 units.
So Al Nasser contacted you just out of the blue?
Yeah, part of a design project, and there was a guy running the design, and he got in touch on their behalf and said they want units. It's got to be beautiful. They want yours. They want single player. They don't want communal. It's got to be elite level. Think of it more like a luxury spa than, players stood in, wheelie bins or whatever. So we did that, and it was like, oh, cool. Just think, one of these he's going to Cristiano Ronaldo. And we joked about it, and everyone's like kissing these eyes, having a bit of a laugh. And then, one day it comes online, and that's probably a year later.
Yeah. So where were you when you saw the photo of him?
We were in the office, and someone said, "You won't believe this." And they held up the phone, and he's there giving all this, isn't he? And it was an activation for another brand, actually. But they were talking about the effect of cold on his health, and he's talking about he's referencing some data to do with his nervous system, effectively, in that post. And it was but for me, it was like, yeah, of course he is. Of course he is. I mean, some of the guys that we're not allowed to talk about are the ones that I think, wow.
So did you ever then get in touch with Cristiano and give him or do a deal with him for ice?
We tried. Yeah.
I know you love our ice baths. Call him again. No.
Yeah, no, we tried, but we don't. Again, if it's meant to be, it'll come back. So we sent a message and said, if it's ever of interest, we make them. And we left it at that. I'm not into that kind of pestering and being annoying. It'll come back round if it's meant to be.
And do you think that photo made a difference to your business?
Internally. Yeah, internally.
Because I think this is the thing that some businesses, they chase the celebrity thing, thinking it's going to transform our business.
It doesn't. No.
Explain.
Progress is what transforms the business, but the culture's fed by those little moments where people think emotionally, can you believe we made a unit in here that went out there and Cristiano's in it? And we've had that with other famous types, but they don't make a difference in and of themselves.
You did say that there are some people that use your product that if we knew about it, it would be transformational for you.
Yeah.
Because it's like, we're talking even more impactful than Cristiano right here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So why wouldn't you then say to those people, is there any chance that we can do a deal here and talk publicly about the fact you use?
Oh, just the sales process educated us that wouldn't be the case, because the NDAs come through,
right,
and the big documents to sign, and and some of that's very, very obvious. You're not allowed to film while you're on the premises. You're not allowed to disclose this address. Very practical, very practical things. But in there is IP and rights, and where by paying for this product, we're agreeing that we own the product and it's not about a brand opportunity. And fair enough. Yeah, but the NDAs coming in advance of sale are the telltale signs that it is probably not going to be where we can go.
I really like, though, the fact that while some brands are just chasing a name to endorse their product, whether they use the product or not, whether they love the product or not, they just want the endorsement. Whereas you're basically you're swimming against the tide here.
Yeah, we say no. Yeah, we say no. So we turned down only this week one of the most popular podcasts on the planet, and said individual said, for free. So we said, yeah, sure. What's the exchange? What's the trade around that we could talk about? Oh no, it would be a gift. But we'll probably, I might do. So I said no. I've learned over the years that that's a fast way to, lose another 15 grand. I'll not see it again. Whereas I'll give you an example. If I spend that same money and I build one that goes to the community in Tadcaster Pool, where we are, and the community get to use it, that's far more rewarding. So all the amateur triathletes are in there, the swimmer, and then people understand the brand that serves them, and it's there this is donated. We run it, we give them it and run it for free. I'd rather do that. I'd rather show up at an event like Joe Wicks, where a number of people get to try a cold water immersion for the first time and talk to them about it.
But you're a branding expert, right? You come from a branding background.
Yep.
And really what we're talking about now is that the well-known faces and names, most of whom are not even able to be mentioned, right, are actually valuable for you for your internal culture. Rather than for your external brand.
Absolutely, yeah. And they're also lovely for the external. So the Instagram followers would enjoy seeing the Cristiano, because it's validation, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's validation. I think they're cool as well, and Cristiano thinks they're cool, and that's great. But yeah, in and of itself, it's relatively...
Vanity metrics.
Yeah.
So here you are today, a brand and a business you created in a couple of garages, used by some of the best known successful people on the planet. People would go, well, that's a lovely, linear, simple, easy entrepreneurial journey. And you just mentioned a moment ago that the last year's been the hardest.
Yeah. So we've had 3 times where we could have folded. The business could have ended. Just cash flow, because it's...
Right. And for people that don't understand business, would you just take them into that world of cash flow just to really understand how you can... Because this kills so many businesses. You're successful, you're selling products, you do something great, yet you can still lose your business at any moment.
Any moment. It is literally a tightrope walk, the whole thing. And a lot of businesses will go under just because of cash flow. They did nothing wrong, but they had insufficient cash to operate, to pay suppliers, to pay staff. And of course, then the whole thing crumbles.
So you're building your product before you're selling your product.
Yeah.
And so it's costing you thousands of pounds.
So you have to have stock. You've got and a lot of fixed costs, and then and we're buying in stock predicted against the sales. So sometimes you're holding stock. I give the example of the imported chillers. Mm-hmm. We buy all those in. I don't know. Probably that invoice would have been a good 80k. All of it fails, and we have to replace them all. That's probably an extreme example, but that's a cash flow killer. So it's always been about putting capital in. It's been about our investor being prepared to walk that line with us, which they have, fortunately, but they don't do it at any cost because they're a business as well. So they're very sympathetic and understanding, but it's not a case of, we need some more cash quickly. It doesn't work that way. It's like, well, for what? Why? It's difficult.
Yeah,
it's difficult. So there's been 3 points where we could have gone under. The biggest was, I would say, last year.
Can we go into that room as the next room?
Mm.
So the room where you realise that there's trouble ahead. What did that room? Where was that room?
So we're in Wetherby, where our production facility is, which is a place called Thorpe Arch, and just seeing data and having that genuine.
So you're sitting around a desk with your 2 brothers or other people?
With Chris and Dale, and looking at the data, thinking.
And what was the data?
A lot of people have flooded the ice bath market, and the reason I knew from day one in my own garage that we could be the dominant brand is because it's a niche. You can still build a brand in a niche, and you can scale out of a niche. No matter what people tell you, you can always compete. But with that comes another challenge. Other people see that niche and they see your success and think, we'll have a bit of that. And now we have a number of brands coming at all angles. Some of them are literally copying us. Yeah. So it looks like our product. And if you squinted, even the logo looks like it might be our logo. And these are, they're coming en masse from the Far East. So we've been eaten from the bottom end, and we've been eaten from the top end. What do we do? Because we look at the data and think, this is not good.
Did you feel you might lose the business?
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
How did that feel?
Kind of gut-wrenching, a bit nauseous, because we've never really paid ourselves. And so that wasn't new. It's a problem because that I can only personally do that for so long, but and that's the same for the other guys as well. But that doesn't cash flow the company, not paying ourselves. It's one tiny little thing. So we had to reorganize quickly and change our priorities, which meant changing what projects we're working on. So it's a stop-start change. Quickly, what do we stop-start? Let's do a stop-start change exercise. And
what does that look like?
So we have different work streams, product development and innovation, like R&D generally, marketing, sales, ops. And they were all gearing towards incremental growth in resi, direct-to-consumer selling of residential grade ice baths in some form or other. We were very much on that course, and it was going beautifully well. Not like, let's start buying ridiculous cars. I don't mean like that. It's still a loss-making entity, but this is looking really
makes
positive.
Me feel ill even hearing this.
And then it was, and then
I know
and it's like then there's a swiping of the legs.
Yeah.
And it was.
But the problem is you've got all these areas of your business, and they're all lined up for growth.
Yeah.
And then you have to go, right, we're going to stop doing that, and we're going to stop doing that, and it feels like failure, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's horrific.
You just fear for you sort of think those things are there for future-proofing the business.
Yeah.
Are we going to cut those off, still struggle, and then they're not there, and then we are really going to die? It's the entrepreneur's dilemma, this.
And we are still in that transition nearly a year later. We're just significantly through it now. It's much clearer. Yeah. And we are converging on completing of some projects and that allow us to move forward.
I think, again, it's another great lesson here in your business that through struggle and potential failure comes growth, right? And if you didn't have cheaper ice baths entering the market underneath, squeezing you from below, you'd still be trying to sell one ice bath per family around the UK and the world, and there's your business.
Yeah.
This is the magic. You've realised that actually that will die, right? So therefore, there's something far more exciting. But you were so busy focusing on this, you didn't even see how exciting this was.
Without a doubt, commercial is the game. Commercial's the game, and that market is huge. Basically, every commercial space that has a sauna will warrant a premium ice bath, and there isn't a competitor that can do what we do.
So your biggest lesson then for business owners, entrepreneurs listening to this who fear failure?
Discomfort is the way. The obstacle is the way. Challenge creates change. However you want to word that stuff. Lean into it because it's where the insight is. And if you can dig out the insight and define the obstacle, you can then find the way. And some of it is very iterative. If this, then that. And some of it is collecting those difficulties to derive insight, patterns, pattern recognition. We keep seeing this. We keep feeling this. We keep hearing this feedback. What are we going to do? That is absolutely the way. On the way here just now, my brother phoned me and we've got some problem units at this particular space in Europe. And he's saying to me, they're not performing the maintenance regime appropriate. And we can see it in data. It's not a discussion. Well, the obstacle is the way. How are we going to stop this? We need to design the problem out. We need to design around apathy, not say, well, you're the operator. Yeah. We could do that. But there's no space in that for me. The opportunity will be, let's design around apathy then. What would that look like? So now that sets off a different kind of project, which we've bubbled away on, right? Generation 3 units later this year. Generation 3 units will have some fundamentally new features that allow more apathetic levels of maintenance in gyms. And because the obstacle is the way.
So that's the biggest lesson you've taken from the Stoics, shall we say. What was the biggest lesson that Wim Hof taught you?
I'm in control, no matter what other people tell me, whether it's healthcare professionals or I am, what's his expression? I'm the captain of my ship.
What about Joe Wicks, who's obviously had a big impression on you? What's the biggest thing you've learned from working with him?
Joe, energy. Yeah. Show up with energy. He's such a lovely guy, and I don't mean that as in energetic, as in free giving. He's such a lovely person and gives back. He's reminded us to always be community led.
And as a branding expert and as a marketeer, David Ogilvy would have taught you a lot. What have you learned from studying him?
Consistency in brand. Even if you deviate, it's probably going to hurt.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
It's brilliant. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you so much for listening. Listen, if you want to hear more conversations with the likes of Rory Sutherland, Richard Branson, and more from the brightest minds in business, please follow the show and check out our previous episodes. Thanks as well to our partners at IFS, and I look forward to seeing you next time on The Room Where It Happened.